Well, good morning. Welcome to Wednesday. I have some news to share that will be surprising for everyone, and it will make some people happy and some people will be less happy. I have accepted the call to a new pastorate in San Diego, to Hills UCC. I've been carrying that, confidentially around for a couple of months, so it actually is kind of like I can breathe because now I can share this story with you. So I am on the one hand thrilled at this call, and on the other hand full of grief leaving people I deeply love. But here's the reason why. It's an extraordinary story of call for me. So in April, many of us, a year into the pandemic, were feeling pretty exhausted, and I felt I needed to take some kind of a break and sort of a renewal, rejuvenation kind of thing, healing. And I thought, well, maybe I'll go to the mountains. I would maybe go to a monastery, but those weren't available either. But I kept hearing in my sort of spirit water, ocean waves, in fact. And that had never happened to me before. I've never felt called to water. At the same time, my sister Mona, I hadn't seen, like all of us had not seen our families, and really wanted to see her. So I had arranged so that when they were both fully vaccinated, I would come to visit them in Phoenix. Well, just before I was going to see them in Phoenix, Mona had emergency surgery that required her to recover in bed for 12 weeks with her foot up. It was on her tendon. And she said, well, I don't want you to come and just sit next to my bed for a week. And she knew that I had this sense that I was feeling called, I wanted to go to water. And she said, well, go to San Diego. We go to San Diego all the time. And so I found a cheap Airbnb and spent a week there. Many of you know that. While I was there, healing along those waves, which really was truly healing, I thought, well, what UCC churches are here? And so I looked them up on the web and read their websites and came across one that had an open pastor search. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Let me read it. Just curious. And I thought, well, that's a great church. It's called Hills UCC. And that was it. A couple days later, I thought, let me read that profile again. And I thought, I could do that. But I had no interest in leaving Park Hill. We were in the midst of unveiling Park Hill 2.0. It's an exciting time for us. I came home, told Art about my adventure. And so there's also a UCC church looking for a new pastor. And his response was, we're not moving. And I hadn't suggested that we do. But that was his immediate response. And I just left it at that. But a couple days later, I thought, you know what? Something says I need to put my profile in, and he agreed that if I didn't, I would regret it. So I quickly put together a profile because I wasn't looking for a new church. And then I went on Tuesday to look for their profile again off their website, and it wasn't there. So I went to the National UCC website for pastoral searches, and it was on hold. What does that mean? This is like a week and a half after I'd come back. What does that mean? So I called Sue Art, our conference minister, and said, would you find out if they're just on a pause or they have found their candidate? And she reached out to her counterpart in Southern California. And Sue had said, this is somebody you really ought to take a look at. And so the Southern California conference minister said to this committee, hey, will you take one more? And they thought about it and said, yeah, sure. So here's the other side of the story. That's the mind-blowing part of it. The committee had kind of settled on a candidate, but settled was the right word. They were not in unanimous agreement. And they didn't quite know what to do. And so they said, well, let's not rush, even though they wanted to get through their interim period. We got to trust the process and pray. And this is a deeply spiritual committee, excuse me, that has stayed grounded in prayer the whole time. So they prayed on Thursday. On Friday, their conference minister said, hey, I have one more profile if you're interested. They read it. They were interested. They contacted me. They met on a Monday. They contacted me that night, said we want to set up an interview next week. I had that interview, and the next morning they said, hey, we want to have a second interview with you. And that second interview was less than 1 month from when I had just gone to San Diego to walk the beaches. Something was happening. The fact that I had listened to the call of the Spirit to go to water, that they had been in this process. I mean, they had their profile out since the January 1st, and this was now, the early part of May. So at the end of the second interview, we both sort of felt like, I think we found each other. I went out and spent 3 days with them in July, and the connection, the synchronicity was just astounding. And I just then was there this past weekend and spent a couple of days meeting people, meeting the staff, and it's a call. We really felt a connection, and worship on Sunday was incredibly powerful. All of which then I have to come back and start telling the beloved people at Park Hill that our chapter has come to a conclusion. 14 years. In fact, next week I came here to preach my call sermon. And that was a difficult thing as well. I felt called here, but how would I leave my Archwood family, where I had been for 15 years, and felt similarly these deep bonds. But as I felt called to Denver, I feel called to San Diego, and I invite you to join me in celebration of the power of God's call in our lives, not only as clergy, but as Christians. And so that's my story. To those of you at Park Hill, I just kind of want to say I'm sorry, but I know you understand. I've told a few people, and the responses have ranged from "what the hell" to "we're so happy for you," and I'm sure you're somewhere in between. And I'm so thrilled for the people in Mission Hills and our opportunity to be in relationship. So that's my story today. I will be continuing to share our daily reflections, but my last Sunday at Park Hill will be September 12th. I have 5 more Sundays, and I hope that we will have opportunities to say goodbye to one another during that time. So I'm grateful today. I'm grateful I could finally say something. I mean, carrying around a secret is burdensome in and of itself, and I hope that you'll celebrate with me. Have a grateful day.